Hello, welcome to Bits in Biology. My name's Liz, and today I'm going to talk about some of the games I played in the month of July. In July, I had 38 plays of 26 different games. If you compare that to June, the month before, when I had 64 plays of 24 different games, you can see that my game playing was down just a little bit. 5 of the 26 games I played in July were new to me, and in descending order of how much I enjoyed them. They were Caverna, the Cave Farmers, Gutenberg, Tiletum, Beacon Patrol, and Devon. If you want to see a list of all the games I played in the month of July, or since the beginning of 2022 for that matter, you can check out my profile on Board Game Geek, and I have a link to that down in the description. Alright, before we get started, I just want to remind you that we do have a Discord server. There's a link for that down in the description. If you have never tried Discord before, it's basically a place where people can get together and chat. It's divided into different topical channels or chat rooms, or however you want to think about them. So for example, in the Bits in Biology Discord server, we have a general game chat, space for game recommendations, a solo gaming channel, online gaming channel. You can talk about what's new on your table, new arrivals, games that you got, or games that you're using in the classroom if you're a teacher. And then there's a long list of others. So make sure you check that out if you're interested. And like I said, there's a link for that down in the description. All right, let's start with the top 10 games I played in July. We're going to go in descending order, starting with number 10. Actually, we'll start with numbers 10, 9, and 8 because they are all sort of nature-themed or animal-themed, wildlife-themed games. And so I'll talk about those when I talk about the channel-relevant games. So they were at number 10, we have Ohanami. Number 9 was Cascadia. And number 8 was Harmonies. Coming in at number 7 was a game that I have talked about in the past, and this is Carcassonne. This is a favorite of my mom's. In fact, I think she picked this one when we played it. So I played it once in July. I've had 26 plays of it since I started recording plays in January of 2022. This is a tile placement area majority game with Board Game Geek average weight of 1.89, an average rating of 7.4, and my rating of it is a 9.1. I really enjoy this game. So what you're doing in this game is you're laying out tiles. Everybody takes turn on their turn. They lay one tile, and on that tile, if you have at least one meeple available, you can claim either a road or a city on that tile. And so you're building up cities and roads to gain points. It's a very fast setup, very easy to learn, so very beginner friendly, but it's got enough strategic depth to make it interesting. I like it because it's easy on the brain while still being a very interesting puzzle. And it can be sort of as interactive as you want to make it. My son, for instance, really likes sort of honing in on other people's cities. So the way it works is you can, if somebody else has claimed a city on a tile and you lay down a tile that's not directly connected to that one, you can claim a city on your tile, and it may be that those cities will join, and then you end up sharing the points. Or maybe you take away their points. So that's the way that interaction works in Carcassonne. You're basically all together building up this huge map. So that was number 7, Carcassonne. And number 6 is another game I think I've talked about before, and that is Clank Catacombs. We played this once in July. I've played it 7 times in total. This is a family strategy, deck building, push your luck game with a modular board. It has a BGG weight of 2.51, an average rating of 8.3, and my rating of it is a 9.15. So I really like the modular board in this one. So Clank Catacombs is sort of, I guess, a re-implementation of the original Clank, a deck building game, which had a static board, which was still a lot of fun. We love that game. And sometimes when we don't want quite the level of thinking required for Clank Catacombs, sometimes we'll still play the original one. We have a couple of expansions for it that make it a lot of fun as well. But going back to Clank Catacombs, so I really like the modular board. on your turn, you're moving through these different passageways on the board. If you get to the edge of a board, you can draw a tile and place it however you want to connect up the different tunnels. And you have to make it in, at least get an artifact, but you need to collect some more points along the way without angering the dragon too much, without losing your life. You have to make it back out. So I really like that. It's a deck building game with a really large deck of cards. So every game is going to be a little bit different. I really like the push your luck tension of seeing how far in you can go, how many points you can collect before your luck runs out and your health is gone. So you have to at least make it up to above ground in order to collect points, but you have to make it all the way out to get a 20-point bonus. And so there's that nice tension between gaining points and sort of maintaining your life, I guess. Anyway, that was number 6, Clank Catacombs. Coming in at number 5 is a game that was new to me, and that is Tiletum. We played this 4 times in the month of July, all multiplayer, so it was me, my partner, and our son. And this is a dice drafting, set collection, resource management Euro game. It has an average BGG weight of 3.43, an average rating of 7.9, and my rating of it is a 9.2. What I really like about this is how you choose your actions. So at the start of the round, you'll roll the dice and allocate those dice to particular actions depending on the number that they show. The way it works is the strength of the action is inversely proportional to the number on the die. So the smaller the die number, the greater the strength of the reaction, but the fewer resources you get. So I really like that dichotomy there. There are a variety of different scoring opportunities, and so this allows for a diversity of viable strategies for winning, and it's just a really fun game. I believe it has a solo mode, so I'd really like to try that, but I have not yet tried it. So that is number 5, Tiletum. Coming in at number 4 is another game that was new to me in July, and that is Gutenberg. We played this 3 times. This is another Euro game, worker placement and set collection. Has a BGG weight of 2.74, so a little bit lighter than Tiletum, but still heavier than I would introduce to my mom, probably. It has an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.3, and my rating of it is a 9.3. I love the historical theme. So as you might have guessed from the name, this has a theme of the start of the printing press. And the way that it works is on every turn, behind a screen, each player will allocate cubes that they have to different actions. And then once you reveal those, whoever has placed the most cubes for a particular action, they get to take that action first. And the way it works is the person who is going first that round will have the fewest cubes to allocate, and the person who goes last, as you might have guessed already, has the most cubes to allocate across those actions. And so secret bidding for actions is really fun. Again, there are multiple viable ways to win this game, multiple viable strategies, ways to win, and it's just a really fun puzzle. So you're fulfilling contracts that involve you collecting ink and letters, and then also different embellishments. I think they call them embellishments. Anyway, extra stuff that's actually optional but can earn you points as you're fulfilling these contracts. So really fun game. Definitely doesn't overstay its welcome. Really loved that one. In fact, we need to get that to the table again sometime soon. So that was number 4, Gutenberg. Number 3 is a game I have talked about in the past, and that is 5 Tribes, the Djinns of Nikala. We played this once in July. We've played it 4 times in total, and this is a strategy game with a Mancala mechanism and involves also set collection. It has a BGG weight of 2.84, an average rating of 7.8, and my rating of it is a 9.4. So in this game, on every round, you're bidding for turn order, and coins are basically worth points at the end of the game. That's how you tally up your points, is via gold. And so you're spending that gold to determine what the turn order is. So on your turn, what you will be doing is picking up all of the meeples on a particular square and then moving across this grid of tiles and dropping off a meeple at every tile you pass through. And so however many meeples you pick up determines how far you can go, and the color of the last meeple determines one of the actions you can do. There's usually also an action associated with that tile that you end on. Because every time you set up the board, it will be different, There's a lot of variability to this game. There's also the fact that even though all of the meeples start out arrayed, there's 3 to a tile, there'll be different combinations of colors. That is determined randomly. And then the board state is going to change throughout the game based on how people are moving meeples around the board. There's multiple ways to score points, so there's sort of multiple different strategies you can employ to win the game. It's easy to learn, but a lot of strategic depth. This is definitely not one I would introduce to my mom. I think she would find it just a little too overwhelming, the planning ahead that you have to do. There's a lot of spatial navigation that you have to do in your head when you are planning ahead for your turn that doesn't always turn out the way that you think it's going to. So yeah, easy to learn, but hard to master, I think is how it's usually put, right? So that is number 3, 5 Tribes, the Djinns of Nikala. Number 2 is also a game that was new to me last month. Finally got this one off the shelf of opportunity. In fact, I probably should have written down when I bought this game. This is Caverna, the Cave Farmers. I know I have had it for at least a year, and it's been sitting on the shelf, and I would pull it off the shelf every couple months probably, open it up, look at all the components inside. It's just the box is already kind of big and it is crammed full. And I would just close it and put it back on the shelf. Finally told myself I am going to get this off the shelf and play it. And it helps that we have a 3D printer that we got for Christmas. And so I actually printed an insert for this that is going to make it easier to get it out of the box and onto the table because otherwise it's a lot of little baggies. But anyway, in July we only played this once, but since then we've played it 7 times total. We played it 6 times in the month of August. And I love this game. I played it both multiplayer and solo. This is a strategy, worker placement, and tile placement game designed by Uwe Rosenberg. So I'm already predisposed to like it, but I haven't tried all of Uwe Rosenberg's games, so I can't say for sure that I like everything he's designed, but so far so good. He hasn't disappointed me. This has a weight on BGG of 3.78, an average rating of 7.9, and my rating of it is a 9.45. So in this game, you are dwarves, and you have this dual focus of both mining in the cave and making your home in the cave, right? Building out rooms, I forget what they call them, furnishings, I think. And then also you're farming and raising animals outside of the cave. Although some of the animals make it inside the cave. So there's this dual focus on both farming and mining. There's competition for actions, that's the worker placement part of it, and also resource management. To manage your resources, because it's an Uwe Rosenberg game, you have to feed your people almost every round. There's not a harvest every round, and when you have the harvest is when you have to feed your people, but it's most rounds that you have to worry about that. And so you can gain additional workers throughout the game, but the more workers you have, the more resources you have to feed them, right? So there's that sort of tension there. There are multiple paths to victory. You can focus on mining, you can focus on farming. There's also building up your dwarves to be Vikings. So lots of different ways to score points in this one. It's a lot of fun. The chunky tokens are really have a nice tactile experience, and tiles are good quality, all of that. I don't see this one leaving my collection probably ever, but we'll see where I feel about it in a year. But it is great both solo and multiplayer. I've really enjoyed my plays of it. And so that was number 2, Caverna, the Cave Farmers. Coming in at number 1 is a game that we'll talk about when we talk about the channel relevant games, and that is Atiwa. And I've talked about this before, and in fact, actually I have a video out on the channel if you want to see my review, my more in-depth thoughts about it, and there's also a solo playthrough. So that is number 1, Atiwa. So now I just want to go through a few honorable mentions, well, 3 honorable mentions to be exact. The first one I want to talk about is Pioneer Rails. This is a flip and write route building game that has an average BGG weight of 1.95, an average rating on BGG of 7.2, and my rating of it is an 8.5. This has 2 designers, Jeffrey Allers, and then I just wanted to mention it because Matthew Dunstan is, turns out, one of my favorite designers. It seems like every time I find a nice sort of light puzzly game that I really like, Matthew Dunstan is very often involved. So Pioneer Rails, like I said, is a flip and write game where you are simultaneously building railroad routes and building poker hands. It's played over 4 rounds, and within each round there are 5 turns. And the cards that you're flipping have either it's just like a regular deck of cards, except without the values 1 through 9. So it just has the 10 and all the face cards of the 4 different suits. Which card you use on your turn, so I think it's 3 cards that are flipped up, and which card you use on your turn will determine where you can draw your railroad route, or what route you can add on to. But then it also goes towards a poker hand that you will score at the end of that round. So that's just really fun. And that was Pioneer Rails. Next one I want to talk about as an honorable mention is Tiny Towns. This game's been around for a little while. This is an abstract strategy pattern building game. It has a BGG weight of 2.05, an average rating of 7.2, and my rating of it is a 7.8. And in this one, it's a bingo style game where on your turn, you call a particular resource and everybody else has to place that resource on their board. Everybody has their own player board. And so it's a grid of, I think it's 4x4, maybe 5x5, I can't remember. But you're placing resources that are these different colors to make patterns to build different buildings. And that's how you're scoring your points. And so the tension here is that when somebody calls a resource and you're like, I can't use that, but maybe you figure out how to use it or how to dispose of it, because there's ways to do that. Anyway, really fun little puzzle, plays pretty quick, relatively easy rules, but can definitely be a little frustrating at times, but in a good way. So that is Tiny Towns. And then the last honorable mention that I want to mention is Pyramids. And this is another one that Matthew Dunstan had a hand in designing along with Brett Gilbert. It has a BGG weight of 1.85, so a very light game. It's played entirely with cards. Has an average rating on BGG of 6.7, and my rating of it is a 7.5. And in this game, you are drafting sets of cards. Well, actually, first you're drafting tiles that determine turn order for drafting cards, and then you draft a set of cards and you place those into one of 3 things that you are building. You're building an obelisk, I forget what it's called, where the dead people go, I don't remember, and then a pyramid. So every turn you have to add on to a tomb, that's right, a tomb. Every turn you have to add on to your pyramid, and then you can optionally also add on to either your obelisk or your tomb. I think that's what it's called in the game. Anyway, it's a fun little light game. It's kind of indirectly set collection because you're trying to build, in your pyramid anyway, connect tiles, not tiles, sections of the card that have the same color on them. And in the obelisk, you're trying to get colors in multiple rows, and in the tombs it's just a majority, like who has the most of a particular color gets to score that color. And so it's just really fun, the drafting and the building. And so of course you can't see everybody else's tombs, but you can see their obelisks and their pyramids, and so you can kind of keep an eye on points a little bit during the game, but then there's always that surprise of the tombs during the scoring. So that is Pyramids. So now we're on to the channel relevant games that I played in July. These are games that have either a nature or wildlife or a science theme, anything that I could relate back to biology. In some of them, the theme is pretty thin, and in others, it's very well integrated, but they're all fair game. So at number 7, we have Ohanami. I've talked about this one in the past. This is an abstract game that involves drafting cards each round, and it has a BGG weight of 1.13. This is a very light card game, very easy to learn, teach to people, and an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.3. I've actually dropped my rating of this down to a 9, not necessarily because I enjoy it any less. I do really enjoy it. I actually used to rate it a 10. I just think that given the other games that I've rated a 10, and if you look at the way the ratings are done on Board Game Geek, and it's, your enjoyment with playing that game, I get more enjoyment from a game like Darwin's Journey or Feast for Odin than I do from this game, but it's a different kind of enjoyment. Right? I really like Ohanami. I think it's a perfect light card game, easy to teach to people, and really pretty. And I like card drafting. So the way that this works is you're drafting cards and you're building 3 columns of cards. And every time you add a card to a column, it either has to go in ascending or descending order. You can't tuck cards into the middle. So once you have filled in, say, numbers that are between, say, 45 and 63, if you draw 54, you're not going to be able to put it in that column. But maybe you've set up one of your other columns where it could go. So the cards are numbered 1 to, I want to say it's 114 or 16, something like that. It's in that ballpark anyway. And there's only one of each number, and they are in 3 different colors. There's blue, green, gray, and pink. And so the scoring is different each round. It's played over 3 rounds. And so the first round you score all the blue cards. The second round you score the blue and the green cards. Third round you score the blue, the green, the gray, and the pink. And the pink score in a way that the more you have, the more they are worth each, whereas all the other colors are worth just a base number of points. It's really fun to sort of plan ahead your scoring. You know, the first round, if you get a bunch of blue cards, those are going to score all 3 rounds, but you don't want to collect them later in the game because now they're worth proportionally fewer points and so on. And so just really interesting decisions that you're making throughout the game. A little bit of push your luck element, which I really enjoy. And that was Ohanami at number 7. At number 6, we have Trails. This is often referred to as Parks Light. In Trails, you are moving up and down a trail just like you are in Parks. You're collecting resources. In this case, you're not doing it to visit parks. You are doing it to fulfill badges that are placed at each end of the trail. So those are the points in time when you would be able to collect those badges. And so that's how you're scoring points. It has a weight on Board Game Geek of 1.78, an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.1, and my rating is actually the same, a 7.1. So I enjoy this game. It's very nice. It's easy to learn. It's quick to play, plays in like 20 to 30 minutes. It's really beautiful. It uses, like I said, the same artwork that you saw in Parks, except that you don't have all the Parks cards, so it's missing that part of the artwork, but the style of the artwork is the same on the trail tiles and all of that. And like I said, you're collecting resources to fulfill cards. Very subtle interaction as far as getting in each other's way and taking, fulfilling cards that other people maybe were working towards. So really fun game, and that is Trails. At number 5 is a game that was new to me in July, and that is Beacon Patrol. And so interesting for this one, this is a cooperative abstract strategy game, tile laying. And I actually bought this one primarily to play solo, but I haven't played it solo yet. I've only played it with my partner and our son. And I wasn't sure if they would like it. They don't tend to like cooperative games, but we had so much fun playing this game. And I don't know exactly what makes this different than other cooperative games, but it requires teamwork and coordination. And I mean, maybe it's just that it's not a particularly heavy game. So it's a very light cooperative game. You're laying down tiles to fulfill certain conditions, basically to earn points. It has a weight on Board Game Geek of 1.37. So like I said, this is a very light tile laying game. Average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.2. My rating of it right now, having only played it multiplayer, is an 8. Like I said, I actually bought this one to play solo. So I'm looking forward to giving that a try. And that was Beacon Patrol. At number 4 is Verdant. This is an open drafting set collection pattern building game that has a theme of houseplants, where you're placing houseplants and rooms. So you're building out basically a grid of cards where you're alternating rooms and houseplants, and the houseplants want certain lighting conditions, and you're also placing tiles into the rooms that are either, say, furniture or pets. And all of those things will earn you points in different ways, depending on how well you, say, match colors or match lighting conditions or fulfill what's called verdancy, matching lighting conditions on the cards. It has a weight on Board Game Geek of 2.05, an average rating of 7.4, and my rating of it is an 8.2. It's just a really satisfying pattern building game. I like pattern building. You could almost call it tile placement, but it's card placement. But it's just really satisfying to arrange the plants and the room cards, and you're trying to get like colors next to each other, but you also want to get a variety of colors. And so balancing those different goals is really, just makes it a really fun and interesting puzzle. And that is Verdant. At number 3 is a game that I have talked about before, and actually I have a video up on the channel for, and that is Cascadia. This is an open drafting set collection game that a lot of people are already familiar with. It has an average weight on Board Game Geek of 1.85, an average rating of 7.9, and my rating of it is a 9. I really enjoy Cascadia. I like it both multiplayer and solo, and it's just really beautiful, but at its heart, it is a very satisfying and fun, puzzly, tile laying and token placement pattern building game with multiple scoring criteria. So you're putting out the tokens, the animal tokens, in particular patterns to fulfill criteria on scoring cards. And then you're also trying to build up habitats where you're matching habitats on the different tiles to build larger and larger collections of that habitat. Boy, not being very articulate today. Easy to learn and just really fun, plays pretty quickly. And that is Cascadia. And number 2 is a game that often gets compared to Cascadia, and that is one that just came out this year in 2024, and that is Harmonies. This is an open drafting set collection pattern building game with really nice chunky tokens, but not such great quality on the cards, but still beautiful. The artwork is beautiful. This game's really pretty. It has a weight on Board Game Geek of 1.99, an average rating of 8.1, and my rating of it is a 9.05. This, like I said, is a beautiful game. The artwork on the cards is beautiful. The colors that are used for the tokens that you lay out to build these different habitats or landscapes, really nice collection of colors. And I really like the planning ahead to maximize your scoring opportunities. So the cards will have different patterns of tokens that you are trying to fulfill, but if you can fulfill them multiple times, you're going to collect progressively more points, and you can puzzle them together to be most efficient with the small space that you have and the limited number of tiles that you have to work with. So it's just a really satisfying puzzle, and like I said, those tokens are just really satisfying to play with. So that is Harmonies. Coming in at number 1 is Atiwa. This is another game by Uwe Rosenberg. So remember I talked about Caverna, the Cave Farmers, which was also designed by Uwe Rosenberg, was also a worker placement game. So this is a worker placement resource management game that has a Board Game Geek weight of 2.71, an average rating of 7.5, and my rating of it is a 9.5. I love this game. In fact, you can see my review of it on the channel. So if you're interested in my in-depth thoughts in it, please go check out that video. What I will say here is I love the fact that there are multiple viable strategies you can use to win the game. It has an interesting theme. I just love the theme, and it's very obvious that Uwe Rosenberg was well acquainted with the role of bats in the ecosystem and the symbiotic relationship between the bats and the fruit farmers, because you can just tell this the way that the mechanisms are integrated in with the theme. He did a fantastic job. The components are great. There's chunky wooden tiles, and when there's cardboard tokens, those are nice and thick, so great quality components, and just really fun worker placement game. So that was Atiwa, which was my number 1 channel relevant themed game from the month of July. For crowdfunding in July, I was very good. I backed nothing in July, but I do want to take a moment to just call attention to a game that is actually in crowdfunding right now. I will caveat this with I have not fully investigated. I haven't read the rule book. I looked at a couple of videos that were up, but they didn't really give me a good sense of what it felt like to play the game. So I'm really going to have to look at the rule book and see if I can get more information. But it's called Primates, and so I'll put a link to that down in the description below. This is a hand management, open drafting, push your luck game. These are all mechanisms that I love. So I'm hoping that I will like it. The artwork is pretty good. This is so I'm just going to actually read the description from the, I don't know if the publisher, designer, or whatever, but anyway, the description that is on Board Game Geek. It says, Primates is an evolutionary board game where you can explore the evolution of more than 100 different primate species. Evolve and try to outmaneuver your opponents as you forage for food and build social bonds. As your primates evolve, they gain special abilities. Whether you prefer the agility of gibbons or the remarkable memory of chimpanzees, the choice is yours. You determine which evolutionary path to take. And so what I saw in those videos is it's a 2-sided board. So I don't know if that's because there's 2 different phases to the game. Like I said, I haven't looked at the rule book yet, but but the one side of the game has a phylogenetic tree, and then the other side of the board has more of a, it's still a tree, but it's the design of it is like a branching actual tree. And so I don't know what the difference is between those as far as the gameplay goes. I don't know if you use both of them in the same game or if that's two different approaches to the game. I'm not sure. But like I said, the artwork's good. I love the theme of primate evolution. And so definitely check that out. But like I said, I want to say that I don't know how good this game is. Like I said, I haven't read the rule book, so I can't say anything about that. And they don't have any, what I was really hoping for with the videos that were up on the Kickstarter page, I was really hoping for like a playthrough video, but they don't have one of those. So that's unfortunate. Anyway, check that out, Primates. Another thing I wanted to talk about in this July vlog is the Dice Tower 2024 awards that were just announced. So for best strategy game, and again, I'm not going to go through all the games, just the ones that are relevant to the channel. So nominated for best strategy game was Darwin's Journey. And so I really would have loved to have seen that one win. I was rooting for it because you know how much I love that game. However, the winner was also a game that I love, and that is Earth. So I have videos up for both of those. So go ahead and check those out if you want to see my thoughts on them, see a playthrough for those. And then, so that was best strategy game. So nominated Darwin's Journey, winner was Earth. There were many more that were nominated, but I don't have the whole list of those. Those were the only ones that were channel relevant. For game of the year, as far as channel relevant games go, nominated was Darwin's Journey again, and Forest Shuffle, which is a game I have not played, but I do want to play. I'm a little unsure about how I feel about the overlapping cards and how fiddly that might be. So if you've played Forest Shuffle, let me know what you think. But anyway, that was nominated for Game of the Year along with Darwin's Journey. And the winner, again, was Earth. So obviously a great game and one that I enjoy too, although I enjoy Darwin's Journey a little bit more. But they're very different games, very different level of complexity, definitely different situations I would play them in. Earth, I actually recently, well, not all that recently, but have discovered that I think I prefer it solo, but I do like it multiplayer. So anyway, good game. So I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about some videos that I've seen recently on other channels that really caught my eye. One is a video that was on the YouTube channel Room and Board with Chris George, which is one of my favorite channels actually. And this was a table talk episode. So he took this table talk idea from Rodney Smith over at Watch It Played. But anyway, the topic was, what do we owe each other? And mostly what he was talking about was whether we choose to shop at local game stores or online, and the importance of those choices in, for instance, building community. And so what sparked this video for him was a trip that he took to a board game store in, I think it was Halifax. He does a summer acting gig out on the East Coast in Canada. And he went to a board game store in a smallish town and was just talking about how he could really tell that that board game store was a part of the community. There was space to play games, and he supported it by buying a game there. But he's also one, and this is the premise of his channel, is saving money, right? And being frugal when you're purchasing your games and making good decisions about that. And so he was talking about the fact that, you know, local game stores don't have the economy of scale to offer their games at the cheaper prices that you can find online. And so what, you know, how does that factor into our decision making when it comes to buying games? I will say that my closest local game store is a half an hour away, so I do most of my shopping online. But I will say that I, for the most part, no longer buy games on Amazon, except under certain conditions. And here's why. It's because they have been caught selling counterfeit games too many times for me, and I don't want to risk getting a counterfeit game. For one, I don't want to risk having it be lower quality, but really the more important reason is I want to support the publishers and the designers and the artists and all the other people whose work goes into designing these games. And so I definitely don't want my money to go towards a counterfeit copy of a game. So I mostly don't buy on Amazon anymore, but I do mostly buy on online gaming stores. So I think after watching that video, I might go out of my way to to investigate my local options just a little bit more, but we don't have a game store in my town anymore. And in fact, we had one, but it went out of business during the pandemic, unfortunately. So maybe we'll get another one sometime soon. Anyway, that was What Do We Owe Each Other on the channel Room and Board. And I'll put links to these videos down in the description. The second one I wanted to talk about was an awesome video that was put out by Jeff over at Foster the Meeple, and that was about board games and mental health. It's really nice whenever somebody just openly talks about these mental health issues that most of us face. And so as somebody who is challenged with depression and anxiety, I can really appreciate him coming out and talking about his challenges with anxiety. And it was just really well done, a very heartfelt video. And so I encourage you to watch that. And that was Board Games and Mental Health by Jeff over at Foster the Meeple. So the last video that I want to talk about is one that is actually not from a board gaming channel, is on YouTube, and this is on Rebecca Watson's channel. So she usually does science-based or research-based, a lot of fact-checking or myth debunking videos. Very interesting. I totally encourage you to check it out. So I'll put a link to this video down below and you can check out her channel that way. But her video was called Study Why Autistic People Love Board Games, and it was based on a paper that came out not too long ago. Actually, I have it pulled up here. So when was it published? Published on 5th July 2024, called Game Changer: Exploring the Role of Board Games in the Lives of Autistic People. And so what they did in this study, I'm not going to talk about in depth, you should go check out her video, but what they did in this study is a survey of, I forget how many does it say, they did a quantitative survey of over 1,600 board gamers. And what they found was that autistic individuals are overrepresented in the hobby compared to the general population. Now, Rebecca Watson pointed out that that they drew their sample from basically social media online, right, where board gamers hang out. So places like Board Game Geek or Reddit, or, I don't know where, but they probably did get some of their people from those two places. And so already you're probably going to have a biased sample as far as autistic representation in those samples. But I just found it really interesting. I've actually read the paper, and the paper is really interesting. What stuck out to me is that the types of games that autistic people and neurotypical people tend to be the same. The reasons they like the games tend to be the same, with some very subtle differences between them. So for instance, for autistic people, their biggest reason for enjoying playing board games was this sort of puzzly figuring things out idea. And for neurotypical people, it was for the social interaction was the number one reason. But really, if you look at the graphs that are in the paper, they're not that different. I feel like the authors tried to make more of those differences than maybe was possibly warranted, but it's still a good paper. I really like it. They did 3 different studies in it. So anyway, just really interesting. I encourage you to check out Rebecca Watson's video. She did a really good job of breaking down the study, and she's entertaining to watch. So definitely check out her channel. And I'll also provide a link to the article itself, which is open access, so it's not behind a paywall. You can take a look at that. And if nothing else, just looking at the graphs and the tables is really interesting. It is a longer article to read. I might actually do my own video looking a little more closely at that paper. I just thought it was really interesting. And like I said, it's a rather long one, so there actually is quite a lot to talk about in that one. If you're interested in that, let me know. And I just want to wrap up with saying we're up to, as of recording this video, 313 subscribers. So thank you for getting us up over the 300 mark, those of you who have subscribed. I really appreciate it. And if you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. I really love it when you guys comment on the videos. It's fun hearing your thoughts and interacting with you. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.